So, Vince, let's dive right in. Let's kick things off with talking about who you project as the number one player that you think is going to break out for Notre Dame as we head into the 2021 season.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the three different ways that you can be a breakout player. I have four guys on my list, and I would say that three of them all are in each one of one in each category, right? So I've got an established starter who I think is going to break out. I've got a rotation kid who I think is going to be a solid starter, for this year. And then I've got somebody who didn't play at all and who I think is going to contribute in a big way. So it's funny that you mentioned that, and I've got that represented all down my list. So my number one guy is it falls under the category of starter who is going to be a breakout type player. He's going to be on the radar for a lot of national recognition. And that's Jarrett Patterson. And we've talked about Jarrett Patterson a lot and how where he ends up on this offensive line will dictate what the rest of the offensive line basically looks like moving forward. He is versatile enough to play all five positions on the offensive line. I think you and I both believe that he needs to be at left tackle moving into next year, moving into the 21 season and beyond. I think that's where he can maximize his talent and his resume the most. Look, he did a great job at center, and you could tell because Notre Dame was the best offensive line in the country while he was at center. Mm-hmm. And then when he went down with that injury, I think that's really – they didn't break down, but they kind of took
they clearly weren't as good as they were before.
They took a step back, right? I mean, and that says a lot about what Jarrett Patterson brings to the table at that position. I think, his future at Notre Dame is at tackle, like we've said a bunch of times, and I think that's where he's going to end up. And if he ends up at left tackle, he's going to fall in line with the rest of the left tackles at Notre Dame, who are all those first-round draft picks and, where the sky's the limit for their potential. And when Notre Dame puts somebody at left tackle, that means they're the dude. And I think Jarrett Patterson can be the dude. I really do. He's got the fundamentals. He's got the mental breakdown, if you will, for that position. He was a leader on that offensive line at center without being a captain. And that was –
and we were told that by – we'll talk about that.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, that's what we were told when he went down. He's like, the captain of our line is gone, even though he doesn't have a C.
No, wait a minute. You're a captain. Look, no, you don't understand.
Right. So I think he's got the mentality to be that position and be the guy on that line. So my number one guy is Jarrett Patterson.
It would be easy for me to say, well, let's hold off and see what position he's going to play first. But honestly, Vince, it doesn't matter. Right. I mean, to your point, this is a guy that can play all five positions. I think he's a guy that if he projects and continues to develop the next year or two the way that I think he can, is a guy that I do view as being a potential first-round pick. And he's kind of a hybrid to me of Robert Hainsey and Zach Martin, a guy that has the body to certainly thrive at tackle in college, athleticism to thrive at tackle in college, but probably projects more as an interior player at the NFL. And I think he's going to benefit from the fact that he will, if he does move, and I think he will, he'll be a guy that starts at multiple positions and plays them at a high level.
Yeah.
And so I think that to your point, that would it shock me if he's an underclass captain this year? And underclass meaning eligibility wise. I mean, he's going to be a senior in college, but eligibility wise, he'll be an underclassman. No, it wouldn't shock me if he's the next two-time captain that Notre Dame has. We've seen that before, and I think it'll happen again with him, assuming he comes back for a fifth year in 2022, which isn't a given.
No, it's not.
But he's gonna have to. There's gonna be a lot put on his shoulders this year, not just from a how he plays standpoint, but you talked about him being a captain for Notre Dame last year on the field. Well, that's where it was limited to, was on the field, because it was Robert Hainsey and Liam Eichenberg and Tommy Kramer's team, and I think Jarrett did a great job of. And this can be hard for a younger player, and that's what I think makes his taking charge on the field so impressive, is because it would have been very easy for him to relent to guys like Hainsey and Eichenberg and Kramer, but the level of respect that he had for them to allow them to be captains off the field, but then the level of respect they had for him to allow him to be the captain on the field says a lot about the relationship of that group, but then also how they viewed him.
Right.
And I think now he's going to have to kind of serve both of those roles now in 2021 because he is the elder statesman essentially from a experience standpoint. Josh Lugg is a year older in eligibility wise, but he's the most experienced player from a starting standpoint, and he's now going to have to kind of take that leadership mantle on and off the field, in the weight room, in the film room, in the classroom, setting that example for everybody. Because not only are they losing 4 stars in the offensive line, but they're losing their quarterback too.
Yeah.
So he is going to become a focal point of this team, and I think the fact that he's going to move from center to left tackle, if that's what in fact happens, which I think it should. I haven't heard.
We haven't heard either way.
He's going to do it. But I think that's also going to help anoint some, or not anoint, but garner some attention from a national standpoint of, this returning guy is moving to left tackle, and is he going to be the next great tackle? So I think all those things are going to fall into place to allow Jarrett Patterson to be a breakout and be a star offensive lineman for Notre Dame, and the guy that people are pointing to of this is the guy that's going to continue the tradition that has been set really since Harry Hiestand arrived about when you're the best offensive lineman in Notre Dame, it's almost going to guarantee that when you leave, you're going to be a first-round draft pick, which is what we've seen for years.
Yep.
And I think that'll continue with Liam Eichenberg this year. At worst, he's going to be a second-round pick. And we saw Robert Hainsey play great in the Senior Bowl. We saw Aaron Banks, have a great week. So the tradition will continue with Jarrett Patterson on the offensive line.